Welcome in. NASCAR Inside the Race. I'm your host, Steve Letarte. Post 600, post the greatest day in motorsports edition. And that's where I'm going to start, folks. It was a great day. Greatest day in motorsports all year long. Breakfast in Monaco, where we saw Lando Norris win a very chunky Monaco Grand Prix. Some pit stop rules made it a little chunky. Then Alex Palou goes to victory lane in the 109th running of the Indianapolis 500, the greatest spectacle in racing. First oval win, shocking enough, and Palou continues his tear. But then, as always, the third leg of the trifecta, the third leg of the parlay, and if you had Ross Chastain in your parlay, you had a great day. It was Ross Chastain, the Melon Man, from 40th to first. Hasn't been done in decades. Last to first in a backup car. Figured it out and went to victory lane. There's so much to cover today. I think I'm going to start with just the day of racing. I thought it was a great day of racing top to bottom. Every race had a different feel. I love when they align. We don't always get them to align. We don't always get Formula One at Monaco. We do seem to always have, the Indy 500 and the Coke 600, but it was a great day. I was excited to be back in the booth. Hopefully you tuned in on Prime. Proud of what we did on Prime. The booth was, fun to be in, but takes a lot of men and women to make sure all the stuff works, that the mics work and the cameras work and the graphics work. I was proud of what got put on television. And we can't talk about Memorial Day weekend without kind of tipping our hat to the guy who attempted the double for the second time, Kyle Larson. I want to just say this. A lot of people are going to talk about what didn't happen. He ended up wrecking out of both races. And I think if we focus on Kyle Larson falling short at his attempt at the double, it just encourages more drivers to avoid it. It encourages, more drivers to not take the risks required to put their ego on their line, their resume on their line, and to jump out of their comfortable stock car into an uncomfortable Indy car to not just run another series, but run the biggest race in the world, the Indy 500. So I'm taking the opposite approach. I'm celebrating what Kyle attempted. I thought it was great for motorsports. He's the racing renaissance man. And it was amazing. We had so much to cover. We're definitely going to cover Chastain. I'm looking at my notes here. Denny Hamlin, so close, fueling issues at Wintle Ray. William Byron, so good, just not good enough at the end. It was kind of as simple as that. Carson Hocevar fast again, but we have a full group today. Let's bring them in. It's going to take a lot because, look, I've talked and talked and talked for a whole day now. So there was question marks if the vocal cords would last. They have. But I've brought three other friends on to talk about the day that was. So we got Alex Weaves, NASCAR contributor, now pit road reporter. I'm going to put that on there as well. Looked good on the ARCA race at Charlotte. So that was great to see. We also have my friend Todd Gordon. You hear him on MRN. You hear him on the NASCAR Sirius XM radio, championship crew chief. He flexes. He has that championship crew chief in his background. I'll never be able to see. And then look, the quote creator. That's what I call this man. No one makes a quote better than Kyle Petty. Race winning driver. Everybody wants to overlook that you were Mr. Unical bonus. You won the bonuses when the bonuses were the thing. And make sure I get this right because this has a big trouble for me. New show, Kiss My Asphalt. Right? I got it right?
That's it, baby.
Okay, Kiss My Asphalt, because that has some FCC issues written all over it. If I'm going to say that again. I'm going to go around the horn real quick. Weaves. I talked a lot about the racing. For me, it wasn't the racing. For me, it was the red flag at lap 200 that kind of put in perspective what the weekend should be all about. It's about remembering the men and women who've given the ultimate sacrifice. I love that NASCAR does this. I love that the race isn't the most important thing of the weekend. You were there. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so Memorial Day for me it's always meant the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and nobody really does it better in our sport as far as the patriotism, honoring and remembering those that have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our country. We don't know them all, but we owe them all. There is a reason why we get to race on Sunday, and it is because of those men and women right there. So it's really nice that we get all the armed forces together at Charlotte. Every branch is represented, but we also get to see these families who have lost a family member due to service. And it's just so special for us, so special for the drivers and the teams, but Charlotte Motor Speedway really knows how to honor those. And the reason for the weekend is, of course, them.
KP, you're always giving back. You have the Riding Across America background right here. If you're watching on the YouTube, what you do for charities, kind of from coast to coast, you're always just a great spokesman. What does that Memorial Day moment mean to you? You've seen everything in racing, but for me, that touched me that we just put the cars silent and have a moment of silence.
Yeah, that it's amazing. Alex and I got to to host the Gold Star families yesterday for Coca-Cola and for Charlotte Motor Speedway and for NASCAR up between turns 3 and 4 in an area up there, and to be able to stand there and watch these families and watch the drivers come talk to these families and hear Joey Logano talk about, racing takes a back seat today, even though it's a huge day for racing. And you mentioned it earlier, Monaco and Indy and then Charlotte, it's a huge day. But I think the gentleman the chaplain that came up and said the prayer put it all in perspective, that Memorial Day is a day of reverence and remembrance. And that's what it should always be. And I thought that red flag highlighted both of those. It gave us the opportunity to bow our heads in a moment of silence and show the reverence for what Memorial Day is all about and remember those that aren't here.
Todd, I will tell you, as special as that red flag was and what the weekend is all about, when we did go back racing either in the first lap or the second half of the race after that red flag, I thought this 600 kind of had it all. And I mean, from the good to the bad, to the ugly, to mistakes, to dominant, to a Ross Chastain, I don't want to say coming out of nowhere, but at least surprising me in the last 50 laps. We have a lot to unpack.
Yeah, we do. And to have a 400 lap event, 600 miles, longest race of the year, come down to, the last 10 laps, you didn't know who was going to win. And to come to that point, we had comers and goers all day long. There's so many storylines out of this. There's some really good recoveries. There's some really, as we saw with Ross Chastain, there's others deeper in the field. There's some really consistent runs within this that are noteworthy. It's a day packed with everything. I thought you guys did a great job on Prime bringing it to a new platform. But I want to hit the piece that the other two talked about. This race always is a crew chief because you got to carry the name of a fallen soldier and you got to hear the story and understand the family. It made this day more touching in what the sacrifices that people have made to keep this country as great as it is.
Yeah, it can't be stated enough, without a doubt. Let's spin it forward to the race. The Watermelon Man, Ross Chastain, made it happen. The 32-year-old out of Alva, Florida, 6th career win, 236 start. I don't know if I should be talking Chastain, Byron, Hamlin. They were all in the mix. Chastain ended up leading, I think it was for like 8 laps right there at the end of the race. Started last, basically last to first. Let's start with the performance. I'm going to tip my hat to the winner as much as I want to talk about some of the guys that lost because I think their emotion was amazing. I love Look, this win was, I don't know, KP. It's blue collar. This is a watermelon farmer's win. The man started dead last. So I'm gonna have to give him credit. He tweeted or shared the Prime TuneIn logo and he said, "Watch me go from back to front" or something like that. And then he did it.
Yeah, and listen, it was blue collar, and that is the perfect word for it because it started with the accident. It started when he backed that thing in the wall. It started when they drug that thing to the garage area, and NASCAR let them work on it for about an hour and a half, and then say, "Nope, it's too torn up. You guys are going to have to start all over from scratch." They go back to the shop, and Ross, he referenced it. It's about Ross's drive. But he was motivated for what those guys did back at the shop, for what those guys did. You hear that saying all the time. I'd like to thank the guys back at the shop for all the work they did. Listen, these guys built a race car. These guys built a race car overnight and brought it. And Ross was motivated to put that thing on his back and carry it up through there and communicate and make those adjustments and be in the race. And honestly, when he got within about a second and a half or 2 seconds, it was over with because he was coming then. He was headed to the barn. He was headed to the house. He was going to smash that watermelon come heck or high water. And I think it's a total team effort. And that's what, hey, listen, that's what the 600 was all about. 400 laps. You never know who's going to win till the very end. We say that about cup racing all the time, but this was one of them that started the day before for me with the accident. And it culminated and those guys, that same team, 24 hours later, standing in victory lane because they were working on that thing at 12 o'clock midnight on Saturday night.
First driver to win from last officially since Bobby Allison did it at the Richmond Fairgrounds in '69. Alex.
Yeah, talking to Ross.
Line.
So I caught up with Ross in the garage after the incident that happened on Saturday in practice. And Ross told me that the car that day was one of the fastest cars he's ever had when he unloaded. And he was so disappointed and distraught that he had wrecked that car and they were going to have to work on it. And initially they thought they were just going to fix that one, like KP said. So it was like, oh, okay, we'll go fix it. It'll be great. I'll have the same speedy and sporty car. And then NASCAR obviously told him they had to go to the backup. The backup was the backup for Nashville for next week. So this car was bits and pieces. They hadn't even thought about this car yet. So I know Ross was extremely disappointed that it wasn't the original car that he had for Charlotte, but it seems like the men and women that worked until 2:30 in the morning at Trackhouse might have built him a better car than what he originally had in practice. Who knows?
So I don't want to discount the effort, but Todd, I actually think a home race was an advantage. So this is what I mean. Putting a backup, their backup cars are always prepared. I'm not trying to discount that, but you lack tools at the racetrack. You definitely don't have what you have at the shop. I think going back to the shop and taking a breath, Phil Surgeon obviously led this team calmly into the task at head. I think being a home race allowed maybe is the wrong word. It gave them a better
It was a benefit.
Yeah, a benefit.
Definitely
right?
a benefit. Definitely a benefit for multiple reasons. One, you have all the resources. It's not just what you brought with you. It's everything in the shop. You have access to the shop people, because I guarantee this wasn't just the one team or the traveling guys from the race team. It was all all hands on deck. That's what we would call it when we had these situations. And to be able to go back to your shop and do that, as Alex talked about, till 2:30 in the morning and then coming back at 5:30. I mean, that's 3 hours. Somehow you got to get some sleep in there. But to put those things together, Ross talked about being there at 10 o'clock to make sure that the seat fit where he wanted to be. But it's definitely, if you're going to have this happen, having it happen at Charlotte is a huge advantage, because you've got all the resources, all the tools. You can go back through the Hawkeye that you've got at the shop. You can make sure that everything gets to that perfect position that you had that primary car. So good for them.
They're going to sleep well this week, because when asked in Victory Lane, Phil Surgeon said, we're going to delay the sleep one more night. We're going to find some Busch Light, which I don't know why they don't get the Busch Apple. That's like the new trendy thing for all the college kids, is what I've been told. You can't find it anywhere in any stores. But I will say this, when we were on the post-race set for Prime and Ross came up, I kind of got on him. I'm like, hey, man, this is like kindergarten. If you bring a cupcake, you got to bring a cupcake for everybody. He came on stage with one beer. I'm like, man, Ross, I've been working all day too, man. I know what you did was more impressive, but how about helping?
Just pass sips. It was a tall boy around. You guys just have to birdie feed it to each other, and you can have the same beer.
I'm gonna tell you, it was impressive. Well, for every winner, there has to be losers. Why do you think I switched to television? Losing stinks. It hurts. It crushes. And William Byron put on a masterful performance that just wasn't enough. Sometimes we talk details in here about, a pit stop that's gone around. And we're going to talk about that with Denny Hamlin. But for me and William Byron, I think this was just a great race that wasn't enough. I think he just didn't have enough car to hold off the one. There were some other issues in here as well. He lost a chunk of time with the 45 wrecked in front of him. Let's start with the emotion. Then we're going to get into the detail. Alex, William, you've seen him right around the garage area. You've interviewed him a million times. What did you take of his kind of reaction when he got out of the car? I took it as almost disbelief. Like, I think he was still processing that he just can't believe what happened in those last 10 laps.
Yeah. So we always use this phrase of like the high and low of racing. Like one day you're on, the top of the mountain, and then the next day you're on the bottom of the valley. So William on Saturday finds out that he's been contract extended. Friday finds out that he's had his contract extended at Hendrick Motorsports. I spoke with him. I was the first interview that he had out there at FanFest for Hendrick Motorsports, and he was on cloud 9. It was like, this is a weight off my shoulders. This is the best day ever. I'm so excited that I know at least where my next 4 years are going to be. It allows me to have a stable. And he talked about it on the broadcast post-race with you guys. He said he likes a routine. He likes to know what tomorrow looks like and what next week looks like. And he had that. And so then he heads into the weekend, and I could tell, just was speaking with him throughout the garage through the weekend, I could tell he liked his race car. Like there's just a little pep in the step that drivers have when they know that.
You can see him walking. The
it was a swagger of William Byron that it was. And after he won the Xfinity race at his home racetrack, and his family was so fired up. They were there. The team was jacked up. You could tell he went into the Coke 600 like, man, I have a shot to win a crown jewel at my home racetrack. He's a Charlotte kid, born and bred. So to see him get out of the car, I could tell just from knowing William so well that he didn't want to react because he saw all of the cameras. So it was this instant, like, I need to stay composed and not show how disappointed I am. And he looked out at one point to see Ross doing the burnout, which I have to imagine as a race car driver is the worst feeling in the world, KP, when you're seeing somebody else win, especially after that big of a dejection. But I thought first I want to give a hand to William because he handled it with class and grace and came on to the post-race show with you guys and talked. I know how hard that must be and how disappointed he was in the moment, but yeah, this is one that I think William will be watching for a long time to see what he could have done differently and how he could have won a crown jewel with the Coca-Cola 600.
Well, 8 laps short, KP, of the perfect weekend. What I mean by that, he won both stages and the race in the Xfinity race. He won all 3 stages in the Cup race. So he literally was 8 laps short of winning taking every checkered flag that was delivered to him.
Yeah, but he was short. And that is just that. Listen, we all know it. Sometimes you just get beat. Or you do everything you can. And William Byron and Rudy did everything they could, and they just got beat. There's nothing we can say. To me, I go back to Darlington early in the year when they made a mistake. I was more devastated, and I would be more devastated as a driver to know I gave that away. I just gave that win away. He didn't give this win away. He got beat. In the end, they just got beat by a better car and a better driver at that period of time on the racetrack in those last few laps. So, yeah, it's tough to deal with. But again, I go back. I said it. Darlington, I would have been more devastated than the one yesterday. Yes, he was that close to the perfect weekend. But man, that's what Cup racing is all about. Somebody sliding in there at the last minute, somebody doing something unexpected, something happening, and you've got to be on guard. And I said it earlier when we were chatting. This was the most defensive race I've ever seen. He was on defense all night long, and at the end of the night, there was no defense for Ross Chastain coming.
Yeah, the lead only was over a second for 75 laps. I mean, it was basically under a second for 325 laps. That's another way to put it. All right, real quick on William Byron. Let's bring up the line graph because he had this lead, and then all of a sudden Chastain kind of come out of nowhere. What you're looking at is the yellow line is William Byron. The blue line is Chastain. Before the pit stop, Chastain about a couple seconds back. They come to pit road, the 24 first, the 1 car second. This is going from the left on the screen to the right. When they come back on pit road, 4 seconds behind the 24 car. I was in the booth focusing on Denny Hamlin, not getting the car filling, all of this stuff, and I look up and I hit the talk back where I talked to the truck. I was like, we better get on the one. The one is coming. Like, I was shocked. A lot of great laps, but a big chunk right here at lap 372. You steers way up. He has this big gap. No offense, not a great lap by Ross Chastain. A moment for William Byron. I call this the Holy Moly because I thought my man Dale Jr. was going to say holy something else on Prime week 1, but it ended up being the Holy Moly. We have the video on board. Riding on with William Byron. Look at Tyler Reddick. This is basically a wreck that wasn't a wreck. The only thing that saved Tyler Reddick was the crash. KP, this has to get Williams' attention.
Oh, and listen, you're leading the race. You're checking out on everybody, or think you are. And then this happens right in front of you, with just a few laps to go. I think he thought at that time the worst thing that could happen was a restart to put me in that place. But really the worst thing that happened was right here, and you listen to it. As the accident happens, he's out of the gas. Then he powers back up. That 6 or 7 tenths, half a second, whatever it was that he lost right there, came back to bite him later in the day.
Yeah.
It was almost 8/10 of a second that lap he gave. It was 7/10 by his lap times, but it was 8/10 of a second he gave up. He was like 1.9 ahead of Ross at that point, came out at less than 1.1. So that I felt like put Ross in a position. If that doesn't happen, I don't know that we end up with the finish we've got, because Ross is going to use a little bit more to get there. And maybe whatever happens there at the end, William could defend a little better. But that put Ross in a position 1 second back. Now he's to the point. He's got blood in the eyes at that point because he can see it. The recovery is well within sight at that point. I felt like that was a game changer.
Oh, the Holy Moly. That might be what, we've had the Hail Melon. Maybe this was the Holy Moly. I'll give it to Dale Jr. KP, I know you have to run, so I want to transition real quick because I really want your opinion on this subject. And this is Kyle Larson doing the double. I gave my thoughts at the top of the show. I think it should be celebrated. I've said that I feel like Kyle Larson is the Renaissance man. He reminds me of the drivers that drove in your dad's era. And what I mean by that is he didn't run the Indy 500 for anyone other than himself because he loves racing. That's my opinion, not his words.
Yeah.
You've seen more than Alex, myself, and Todd in your career in the NASCAR and in the racing world. What are your thoughts when you see Larson attempt the double?
Listen, I don't think he should ever stop attempting. I don't think anyone, if you have that opportunity, go for it, dude. I go back to Mario Andretti in '67, to AJ Foyt coming over, to Gurney kicking their butt, Dan Gurney kicking their butt at Riverside all those years back in the late 60s and stuff. Those guys came from a different discipline over to stock car racing, and they put their reputation and their ability on the line. And they said, here I am. I think I'm a great driver. Let's go over and run these stock car guys and see what we can do against them. And they came over and they won races. We've had that opportunity with Kurt Busch. We've had that opportunity with Tony Stewart. John Andretti started this whole thing back a long time ago. But Kyle Larson is willing to take that and take his ego and say, hey, yeah, I'll go over there. I'll race with you guys. I'll see what I've got against you guys. And we saw and we know what he can do against any competitor, anytime, anywhere. He had a great race last year. So he didn't have a great race this year. It's one race. It's one race. We're going to judge him on one Indy 500 and say, yep, we shouldn't go back, man. You know, look what happened over there. And then he come over here and this happened. No, I give him huge props for going outside his comfort zone, for going outside what he's used to, what he does on a weekly basis. And if you don't think it's impressive, look at what he does when he comes back. He did the same thing at Wilkesboro. He got in a car that he just jumped in it and drove it to the front of the pack at Wilkesboro and ended up in the front of the pack at Wilkesboro. Did the same thing here. He came down and qualified. Yeah, he got in an accident here. That happens. But I give him huge props, and I hope he never gives up until he wins both of them on the same day.
We're going to keep this conversation going, but I'm going to let KP go. KP, my buddy, the quote maker, and the host of Kiss My Asphalt. Listen to that. I didn't trip on it one time. It's going to happen. Appreciate you coming on, my man.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks. That was Kyle Petty. Guys, I love to get Kyle's reaction just because, you know, listen, he's won races. He's driven. His father's the king. He's seen it all. I thought his reaction to Kyle Larson is fair. For those who didn't see it, you know, it was not a great day, right? He kind of ran. He didn't qualify great at Indy, kind of mid-pack, which is a challenge. Then he got in a bad air situation, got spun around, dropped the green flag at the Coke 600. He fires off to the lead in Kyle Larson fashion, ends up getting in a wreck there as well. Todd, the challenge has to be real, though, jumping back and forth between the two cars, the disciplines, the rules, the details. I am impressed. To this date, though, I think I overlooked Tony Stewart being the only guy to run 1,100 miles. I'm not sure I gave Tony the credit of what it took to run 1,100 miles. Robbie Gordon was close. He was, I think, a lap or a few short in the 600. But I love that we just see the guy drive. I love to see him put his talents on display.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's part of what he does, like week in and week out. It was with everything he does sprint car wise and everything else. As Cliff Daniels talked about it, this is a normal week for him because Kyle's always out running something else. He loves racing, and to be able to yes, did he end up in wrecking out of both races? He did, but there's several other cars that do as well, and to be able to kind of manage this and balance this. And lap one in the second car, just at this Coke 600. Drives himself there was no adaption. It wasn't like I'm going to feel out a lap or two here. He just believed in what he did, drove forward and got himself to the lead. So a true spectacle. And I think great for motorsports to have this story. And I'm all in favor of him continuing to try to do it because I think he's capable of it. He's got the ability and this one didn't work out, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't happen again.
So, Alex, I know you're a sports fan. The only thing I did a lot of research to try to find a comparison, and the only thing I could find was old Neon Deion Sanders, October 11th, 1992, plays in a football game against the Dolphins, jumps on a jet, flies to Pittsburgh, and he suits up for the baseball game, doesn't get in. I mean, that's it. I can't think of another professional athlete who takes on the challenge of what Kyle Larson attempted.
And I think people underestimate what exactly the double means. And I hope you guys will attest to this as well. But I think folks just see Kyle Larson is able to drive everything. He goes and does sprint cars. He goes in, he could race grocery carts in the grocery store, and I think he would still be good at it. But Indy car versus a stock car, an open wheel car versus a stock car, to hop into those and have several laps or 1,100 laps of two completely different entities and race cars. It is truly a feat that I don't think people understand how difficult that is and how much that could rattle somebody else that isn't a Kyle Larson or a Tony Stewart. We talk about these guys that just have racing in their brain, and racing is just in their DNA, and they want to do nothing other than race whatever somebody will fund them and give them and help them be out on the racetrack. And I think people need to need to realize like how difficult of a feat that is that Kyle Larson is accomplishing.
Well, Weaves, I let KP off the hook. I'll let you off the hook as well. I know you got some travel. I appreciate you joining me on the holidays. Always great catching up. So thanks for the insight. It's a good time. And now me and Todd are gonna really nerd some stuff out here. So I'm not gonna make you sit here and listen to all the fueling issues that the Denny Hamlin had. You got to live it live, so I won't make you relive it a second time.
Trust me, I listened to it. I'm also interested to hear about the Holy Moly. Please dive a little bit more into that, because if William Byron didn't need to like go and change his clothes after that, that was insane. So
I'm gonna tell you,
you guys enjoy the rest of the show.
Thanks, Weaves. Yeah, the Holy Moly. I think that's what I'm gonna call it. Todd, we talked about William Byron. I will tell you, the other guy, I just had this feel. I thought it was a Denny Hamlin night. It's a 600-mile race. It runs a lot like the Southern 500. I know people may not compare the two, but in my mind, this and the Southern 500, I really think 600 miles at Charlotte is about like 500 at Darlington, right? As tough as Darlington is.
Yes.
I thought Denny was in the place, but there's a lot to break down here. In the end, let's start with what happened and back up. In the end, the 11 didn't have enough fuel, had to come to pit road. I don't know what his pace was. I think he was saving fuel, which is why Chastain got by. He didn't mount a charge against Byron because of the fueling issues. But I think this is a building throughout the sort of day. So when I look at this race, there was a caution with about 162 to go. And that was the reset moment for everyone. That was the moment on the road trip. This is what I equate it to, right? That was the moment on the road trip that you got to your best exit. It has food, it has coffee, it has fuel, it has everything. You're going to reset for the 162 lap finish to the end. And most of the teams did. Most of the teams filled their car up with fuel. The 11 was behind on fuel. And in the end, I think that's what pushed them into having this mistake, is Chris Gale doing what he needed to do to keep up with Byron, right? This is a cause and effect sort of thing. So William Byron is so fast. The 11 of Denny Hamlin has to be more aggressive on their fueling, and they just don't get it full. Is that a fair assessment? I mean, I think that's basically what happened.
I felt like in ways that Chris Gale wanted to get track position out in front and see if they could drive away, what they could do and where they could put themselves. And they did. They kind of kicked the can down the road and said, we're going to have to wait on fuel. At some point, all of these teams, you talked about this on your broadcast a lot, but I don't know that everybody understands this, but in 9.5-second pit stops, we get 12 to 14 gallons of fuel in a car. That's all you can. I mean, it's just physically flow time. That's what you can get in the car. Well, if you break this down, if we stop every 50 laps, which is kind of where it's laid out, you're going to burn 15 gallons of fuel. So you're accumulating being short. And at some point, you got to pay the piper. And at this point, I felt like Chris Gale kind of kicked it down the road and said, we'll pay the piper under green flag, which I got that, understood that. That's less of a penalty usually to have it under green flag, and put our guy out front where let's see if we can get him out in front, get him clean air, and see what we've got in controlling the race.
Real quick, I know what you mean, but let's explain it to the viewer. They're going 180 miles an hour. Why would it be a less of a penalty for a longer stop under green flag? It's purely traffic. So under yellow, when everybody comes down pit road together, bumper to bumper, not time on the racetrack, but positions. If you sit in your pit box longer, we'll say 1 second, you're losing 3 or 4 positions. Under green, while 1 second may be 400 feet on the front straightaway, you still may enter second, exit second. Like position-wise, I know that blows everyone's mind, and it can't be too long under green, don't get me wrong, right? But I agree with the assessment. I actually think Chris Gale was waiting to pay, I call it that fuel tax under green, and I don't think he was wrong in trying to do that.
Yeah, it's a great piece. If you look at the camera angles of the race off pit road, tenths of seconds will separate positions under caution. And to your point, I mean, when we get spread out on a green flag run, it may be, I mean, that adjustment we talked about, William Byron behind the 45, that kind of brought Ross Chastain from 1.9 seconds to 1.1. Well, if I've got a 1 second slower pit stop, I'm not losing positions when I'm a second separated. So it was a gamble. I think a good one. It just didn't pay off execution wise.
And let's talk about that execution. Let's look at the pit stop in general. So this is Denny Hamlin, green flag pit stop, chases the 24 onto pit road. I thought that part was great. They changed 4 tires. Everything was great. It really comes down to the fuel required. They needed it to go perfect, and it wasn't perfect. I thought DH right here does a great job running right to the rear bumper of the 24, makes up some time there. And I think the goal is to kind of leave with him, and they pulled it off, right? He leaves with him. We'll get into the acceleration of the 24 on the backstretch. The pit stop is the point. So what happens is they need or decide that 2 cans is the best way to do it, which means you have to plug 2 cans in. So we're going to jump on board right here, right? Right sides are normal. I think we have the broadcast view as well. Basically, as they go to the left, I mean, it's a clean pit stop. From the driver's seat, everything looks great, feels great. You're going to see the 24 to the right. Let's talk about the race off if this continues. Look how close this is.
Yeah, side by side. An incredible drive by the 24, how much acceleration he makes around the corner. But as you talked about, Chris Gale put him in position, leaving right on the bumper of the 24, maintaining that. And if the second can, and I want to back up to this piece, NASCAR regulates our dump cans, the dump gas cans that they plug into the cars, 12 gallons. And they've actually done they've kind of gone back and curtailed some of the pieces. The only place you can fill those cans is at the Sunoco pumps, and they're not allowed to put any more than 12 gallons. So 1 can have 12 gallons in it. So in order to get 14, 15 gallons in, we have to go dump 1 can, unplug it, get a second can back from the wall, and plug that one back in. That's where the exchange and the plugging of the second can was a struggle. I thought you guys did a good breakdown of that. Let's see that again if you can.
Yeah, it was so good. Both the 24 and the 11, 9.74 seconds exact. I mean, think about that. The exact same pit stop. I broke down kind of how the dump cans work. I think we have that as well. Our friends at Black Helicopter made like basically it's a high resolution breakdown of what goes down in the dump can. Remember in the day, you used to have a catch can guy that would stand behind the car and he would basically just catch the extra gas and he would vent the system. This system vents itself. So those yellow arrows right there is where the fuel goes around the plunger. The blue arrows are hard to see. That's the air exiting, right? So as the air exits, it goes up into the vent tube. When it works correctly, that's fine. And I kind of joked about this, but I've never thought of this way. Listen, yellow and blue make green on a Ziploc bag. Well, I can tell you in this dry break, if the yellow arrows and the blue arrows come together, it kind of gets in a hydraulic. We've all poured a gallon of milk or out of a 5-gallon bucket. And if you pour it out of a 5-gallon bucket correctly and it vents, it pours nice and smooth and it pours faster. You flip a 5-gallon bucket over, one with the little spout, and it kind of blub, blub, blub. Well, that slows down how much it pours. And that's what happened in the 11. It was a bad plug. Fuel splashed up into the vent. You're kind of dead at that moment, right? Like you can't purge this. The only way to do it is to flip the can back over, purge the dry brake, let the fuel fall back where it needs to be. So we don't talk about that, but it's like, that is as simply as what happened to the 11 on that plug.
Yeah, and these cans, when it's properly plugged in and fuel stays on the center part of the fuel, and it vents around the outside, these cans will dump anywhere from like 1.6 to almost 2 gallons a second, depending on where your system's set up. So when you get fuel that kind of crosses over, if that plug's not perfect and it gets misaligned and you bleed fuel into the vent side, heck, it might be flowing 2 or 3 tenths of a gallon a second. It just, to your point, it really cuts the flow down. And they had the time. I really feel like if it's a clean plug, he probably gets the fuel he needs to run those last 15 laps.
Oh, D'Lo on it. He found the thing. Gas Man, if you're listening, I'm sorry. If you're on YouTube, you're watching this right here. Watch the Gas Man plug the second can. It kind of bangs, leans forward. And then here's what makes it so difficult. I see the fuel in the vent line.
So and you see the fuel on the ground. That tells me it's not aligned.
Correct. So the clear vent line, when you see fuel there, either A, it's a bad plug, or B, the car's full. And there's a lot going on. It's hard to know which. But when you add the fuel pouring down the side onto the asphalt or the concrete, to your point, that's when an issue's happened. And I'm going to hand it to Marty Snyder. He caught the 11 radio. We were in the midst of covering this battle, and he brought the radio to life that the 11 was short, and that allowed us to look at the one of Ross Chastain. I thought it was a great moment. Hey, another one thing I want to bring up, because I brought it up on the broadcast, but it kind of got sped up real quick. D'Lo, you got our fuel burn. So I threw this up at the end of stage 3. I love that. All right, so I'm glad I finally get to talk about this. William Byron, on the right-hand side, you see normal things: speed, 108 miles an hour, RPM, throttle position, all of those things. The burn bar. What that is I've worked with my friends at Amazon to create an AI tool that measures RPM and throttle position over the first stage of the race and create what is 100% fuel burn for each car in the field. Then when the car is running less than 100%, because of strategic positioning, right? You want your guy to either save some fuel, conserve some gas for a pit stop. This burn bar will show less than 100%. The beauty of this is two things. Todd, you and I, if we had to focus on one car, we would have a pretty good idea who's saving. But 36 cars are so close. You know, I'm going to miss somebody who's on some great strategy. So I'm going to hand it to you know, AWS, the AI group at Amazon. They have created this for me. It's not 100% perfect yet. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's going to answer all of our questions, but our goal is that this burn bar will be able to compare Hamlin to Byron to whomever else may or may not be in a fuel strategy race. I just think it's another way graphically to show the fans what the drivers are doing. I mean, think about this, Todd, right? You and I, we ask these drivers to do it like it's nothing. But, hey, man, I want you to go 188 miles an hour. I want you to drive that thing within a couple inches of the perfect line. I want you to manage your pedals perfectly, and I need a little bit of fuel savings. I mean, what these drivers are asked to do is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it definitely is. I love that you got something coming forward. You know, the teams do these as well, and this is something that they've had, and they work through. And within your manufacturer, you have a really good idea because you know what your fuel tables are. For your own car, you have a really good idea because you know what the tune of your own car is, and you can work that throttle position and you know, try to work back into what a fuel flow is. But to have this where you can kind of see it across the board, where you can see it for different cars, it allows us to kind of depict that picture that another level. I think a cool tool, and one that we'll continue to have to explain how it's working as it evolves. I'm sure you keep it forward.
Hey, listen, that's a great point. I don't want to make it sound like we came up with the idea of measuring fuel this way. The teams already do it. We just, with AI, are able to do it at a 36 car level. I think that's really the key. All right, listen, there's so many other guys we need to talk about. I got Hocevar, I got Briscoe, I got Brad, I got Allmendinger. I mean, so many different guys had good, bad days, overcome adversity. Where do you want to go, Todd? I'm gonna give you. Let's start with
a pole sitter. You know, Chase Briscoe sat on the, won the pole and really kind of backed up a little bit. An early pit penalty and a really long pit stop kind of set them back, but came forward to a top 5 finish.
Yeah, I had the tire test. They've talked about how Saturdays have to be better. Well, it can't be better than a fast car and a pole. Right here, watch this. The tire kind of gets thrown to the front. It turns right, rolls out. So that is basically what's called a tire violation. You don't have to touch the tire every time. You can roll them. The rule's been adjusted over the years, but you got to keep it in your area. You can't mess with another team. And this one gets well away from the 19 car. I think, first of all, the call is correct. I mean, look where that tire is. That is absolutely a tire violation. Call is correct. Track position given up, but recovered to a third quietly over 400 laps.
Yeah, and I thought, yeah, I think you're basically, the kind of rule of thumb is you're given half of the pit box either side of you. If you can contain it within that half that's closest to you, that one almost got a full pit box away. Definitely a penalty there. I thought another piece that, you looked at the day and as it went back and forth for the 19 car, they kind of got buried back after that and worked their way forward. James Small took a long pit stop at the halfway break, just after we did the patriotic piece and kind of piece. They were like 30 seconds on pit road. I asked D'Lo to dig back into this one. They waited on fuel. They knew that they were going to be near the back. They actually just worked on making sure they were in a great position, and that brought them forward. If you look, that stop there at 2:05. The march forward from there, they made their car better.
I love that. James Small, he did what we all talk about. He truly broke it up. He said, man, we're going to take a halftime here. We're going to pit a couple times. We're going to understand what we have and what we don't have. And when you look at it, he only gave up maybe, I don't know, there was not a whole lot of cars in the lead lap. So he gave up maybe 5 positions to do all this.
Yes.
Good for him. Look, you got to control the emotion. It's easy to let the runaway train get away from you, which is a race. You and I have done it in our careers, right? We have said, man, if I could have just took a breath. I see it with golfers all the time. It's so easy on TV when you see a golfer spiraling, be like, just slow down. But when you are in the tornado, you can't get your mind to slow down, your emotions to slow down. Great leadership on top of the pit box. And while it isn't a win, you just wonder where Briscoe and these guys are heading if they look back of this second half of the 600 as a moment where they're like, hey, man, we can do this. We belong. We can overcome adversity.
And I look at it. You talked about it. James paid his fuel tax before everybody else did. He went ahead, got reset full, and for the second half of the race, and could run out from there. There had to be, right after this. What was it? 240, 250. he was in the middle of the Ryan Blaney, Daniel Suarez. He was the meat in the sandwich. Fortunately, It didn't end their day.
Another driver, Brad Keselowski, first top 10, first top 10 of the year. Just unbelievable that it's the first top 10. Had some penalties. I want to break the penalty down, though, because it happened on pit road. They had a couple issues, but this penalty for vehicle interference, I think this is worth just explaining. It's a little bit of a teaching opportunity, and it's really referencing of where your car is. So we have this stop right here. If you're listening, bear with me a little bit. I have a video I'm going to show the folks on YouTube. Alex Bowman sitting in his pit stall 35. Brad Keselowski pitting in pit stall 34. As he turns in, there's an orange box you see to the right of the 6 car. To the left of the 6 car, you can't see it from this camera angle. There is a line. You'll see it on every pit road. That's for the driver. That's a reference. When there are cars in the stall before you, that references, hey, you owe that much room to that pit crew. The camera can see the box, which tells me that Brad Keselowski's left side tires are over the orange line.
Yes.
Then there's a stumble out of the front tire changer. From this angle, I can't see if there's contact, if he trips. To be honest, I don't think it matters. It's definitely a bad combination, but a clear violation, not on purpose, but a violation of Brad Keselowski being too far left. That is vehicle interference to Alex Bowman. It's a safety situation. I mean, it has to be there for a reason. Brad tries to get left to get into his pit box. I think it's a great call by NASCAR. I think, look, they're 3,500-pound cars. We talk a lot about racing, but the pit crews need some sort of protection. Like I said,
Yes.
Brad not being egregious. He just needs to get over there to get out. He knows what's happening, but that's what put him behind. But then he climbs back to a 5th. That's what we've been lacking out of the 6, was this second half of the race climb.
Yeah, and you looked at it, and I went back and kind of read the transcripts of the day for him. Loose and needed to work on it. Jeremy did some subtle changes. They had speed. When they finally got the wave around, you've got time. You're going to start at the tail end anyway, so you got time to work on it. But really, I don't know if we've got this stop, but it's amazing to me how small the adjustments can be to turn you from a lap down, just got the wave around, to somebody who drives forward to a top 5 finish.
It is. It's like in the minutia. I mean, it is in the mud.
I think it's not quite it might be a half a round on the right, little bit of air pressure, put a little air on the right front, maybe a half a round in the left rear. I mean, we're talking about a half of a turn on that. It's just, they're so small in trying to make sure that everything works out.
Yeah, and Priest also had an up and down day. It really had a little bit of everything for the group out of RFK. So I tell everyone, if you can't win the race, my goal was always just to stay off the highlight reel, good or bad. Just have a good day. Go home, learn some stuff. I was very critical on Colleague last year. I thought they needed to be better. Chris Rice and I have had some very pointed conversations about this. He adamantly told me just how hard they were working. And in what I think the biggest test has been, which is the Coca-Cola 600, AJ Allmendinger in the 16 car absolutely did everything I think you should do and not be on the highlight reel, not be on it positive, not be on it negative. He literally, you want to see a great race, we're looking at the line graph. He didn't run a single lap of green flag racing outside the top 10 unless it was due to pit cycle. At no point did he fall back and have to recover. The only dips you see on this graph outside the top 10 are pit cycle driven. That is as veteran-like block and tackle day. This is not just a brick in the wall or a building block. This is an absolute foundation for a team heading in the right direction. Super impressed.
Yeah, super impressed. As you talked about, that first streak of the first 50 laps, that's 10th. And then the rest of the day, it's top 6. I mean, they just, for Colleague, and this is the best of the one welcome, the RCR affiliated programs up there. They just continue. He and Trent Owens have done a great job of just continuing. They find balance in each other. And I've talked to Trent a little bit about this, but a great run for these guys. It wasn't, to your point, not spectacular. Days on pit road, they were 10 something, 11 something. They weren't spectacular pit stops. They just didn't have any bombs of pit stops, and they had good competitive pace. They put a great day together.
Yeah, looking at the NASCAR insights, we talked about some of these on the broadcast, right? No big surprise. Byron leads in passing, defense, and speed because he had such an amazing day. Well, AJ Allmendinger, quiet night, second in passing, second in defense, fifth in speed, first in restarts. The blemish on the card would be pit crew. I don't know if that's completely fair because I do think they were playing the more conservative fuel strategy game. So I do think those numbers can be a little skewed because we're just looking at kind of overall pace. But, others were a little bit higher. But look, the pit crew did just what they needed to do. You know what they did? Nothing wrong. Wheels were tight and fuel was full. Sometimes you just need a block and tackle. This is the most points ever scored by AJ Allmendinger in the current points system. I know we have that extra stage, but that only helps if you run inside the top 10, which is what he did. He gobbled up points at every stage, gobbled up at an end, 8 spots up.
Yes.
I think we overlook AJ. He kind of came on the scene so fast at the road courses, won at the Cup Series, won at the Xfinity Series. He's won in Champ Car, and he's been back to Xfinity, back to Cup, and just I like to see a veteran. He's a father now. I like to see success when he has an opportunity to share it with his son and his wife. And I love Matt Collig, what he has brought to the sport. I love when an owner commits as much as he's committed. The sport's hard. We have to celebrate good days. And that's really what I guess I'm doing here.
And AJ's done whatever Collig wanted him to do. He went back to the Xfinity to make that program better. And then they called him back to come back here. You said +8. Yeah. 17th in points, 13 points below the cut line at this point because he put a solid, they put a solid day together. As you talked about, no highlight reel. This is just a block and tackle day, but to come out with a top 5 finish and score stage points in every stage, that's what put them an 8 position gain here and put them in fighting distance for making the playoffs.
Well, from no highlight reel to Mr. Highlight Reel, driver of the 77, the Dente, the Chili's machine, Carson Hocevar. The box score is going to say 11th in stage 1, 4th in stage 2, 3rd in stage 3, and a 34th place finish. The box score doesn't tell the tale. Carson Hocevar, I thought, had one of his just most solid performances yet. I said this on the broadcast. I'll repeat it again. He's just a pedal pusher, man. He knows how to make speed. I know that sounds simple, but you know what I'm talking about, Todd. There are drivers that are analytical. There are drivers that have feel. Then there are drivers that are just fast. Carson Hocevar is fast. He has made some youthful mistakes. This is what struck me. Jeff Gordon joined us in the booth, and he was the youngest winner of the Coke 600. We saw the replay. We all know it back in 1994. And then Hocevar was near the front on that restart, and the stat guy hands me a card. And it says, hey, man, if Hocevar can pull this off, he'd be the youngest winner of the Coca-Cola 600. And that's when it landed on me that 57 starts, 22 years old. He didn't get the 200 or 300 Xfinity starts. We talk about the junior series. I don't know if junior is the right word, but that's what they are, right? They're feeder, I guess is the better word. Feeder series. That's what they're there. Jeff Burton talks about it all the time. They're there for drivers to learn, not just how to drive, but the emotion, the management of being a star, all of those things. Hocevar kind of skipped that. He jumped right into the Cup Series. So he's learning on a bigger stage. And I thought on Sunday night, the engine expires, but that didn't take away from what I saw. On the biggest stage that he has ran that well in, he was the best. And I'll say it like this. You can sim lap time, you can study performance, you can study restarts, but nothing in the world replicates doing the job. I was so ready for my first job on top of the pit box. I went to New Hampshire in 2005. I blinked. It was over. We ran 14th. I don't remember a single pit call. It was in like supersonic speed. I think it works the same way for a driver. And now Hocevar got restart after restart in the front 2 or 3 rows with the best in the business. In the end, the engine is what fell out of the race. But he is a better race car driver because of this Coca-Cola than he was before the race started.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you look at it, 39th to the top to 4th in the first 125 laps, all on the racetrack, just passing cars, and put himself up here. Getting up here, unfortunate right there. As he went for the shift, it ended. So tough loss for him there. But one of those situations, the day will be a remembrance because he continues to do the things to make speed and make track position and put himself there. And this is, hey, the hate that he gets is because people don't like newcomers to the front. And he is one. And he's got to learn, as you talked about, he's got to learn kind of the processes and some of where he needs to pull back a little bit. But this was a great weekend for him, and unfortunate with the failure there, but a front row restart. And really, I mean, had the engine not expired, he's in the mix for the win. Definitely.
What are we seeing? 8 engines so far in 13 races last year. We only had 1. I plan on making some phone calls this week. So I want to just be clear that this isn't some research I've done. This is my pure opinion. I believe that the sport is so close now. I think it's back to the engine shops just looking for that half a horsepower and 1 horsepower, and they're getting closer and closer to the edge. I'm going to make some phone calls to try to confirm that this week. I don't know if I'll get that or not. But what's your opinion, Todd? You've seen this as much as anybody. 8 engines so far in 13 races.
It's the one place that you don't have spec parts. I mean, really, it's when you look at it to when we got 80% of this car, everybody has the same parts. This is the one place that we can separate each other. And back in our days, it wasn't I mean, we could work on bodies. We could work on gear ratios. We could back in the day, we could work on rear gear too. But now everybody has the same transmission ratios. Everybody has the same body parts. How you assemble them, play. But we have to, this car now, you have to extract the last nth piece out of everything. And that falls back to the engine departments too. And I think you're pushing everything closer and closer to that limit to find an edge. And that's my opinion. I don't really have so I'm
going to add one on here because I want to get your thoughts. I also think, the dirty word in sports right now is like data analysis, or, it's used different. So the other thing I would say is that, so follow me on this. We used to break engines when they made a bazillion horsepower and turned a bazillion RPM, and you would break engines. Then we went to this transition over years of multiple races per engine. And I think the engine shops had to figure out, I think maybe my opinion is they took a big step back to say, these things have got to run because we're going to have to run them multiple times. We have to figure it out. And now we are past that. That's no longer new, right? That's not new. We've had that for multiple years now, the multiple races for an engine. But when you look at the format, the win and you're in the playoffs, the win and you advance, I just believe, even though points would say a DNF hurts you more than it ever have because you only get like 1 point, right? Percentage-wise, you get less points you ever have. The great days are more beneficial than they ever used to.
Yes.
Right. A win can change everything. And I just feel like, to your point, they're turning over every stone. And what I mean is I think the engine shops have kind of got their footing and they know what they have going on anymore. They know how to manage them. And they're like, all right, so much for managing. Now it's time to compete. And they're turning that wick back up. And, look, there's no free lunch. More horsepower comes with more risk. More risk comes with failures. I mean, that's just how it works.
And we really don't have a test bed to really run these things until you get the racetrack.
Right.
And if you feel like there's a little bit left, there are some risk on moves because somebody like Carson Hocevar getting to victory lane is a year maker. So you're going to look at those things. We've seen it across the board. We've seen it all 3 engine manufacturers. We've seen it in really good cars and cars that you would expect it out of. It's just, I think it's just everybody has to push themselves to that 99.8 percentile. And that's, we couldn't run at 98% now.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, in the end, it was Ross Chastain. I just want to circle back to where we started. The 32-year-old won his 6th career win. Just a few things I want to throw in here. That was the 66th running of the 600-mile race. The 40th time it had been branded the Coca-Cola 600. I want to tip of a hat to Coca-Cola for supporting the sport. Also, you heard KP and Alex talk about what Coca-Cola does with veterans and the veterans' families, and I think that's just an amazing thing for a partner when they're able to jump on board and do something like that. He's the 40th guy to win the Coca-Cola 600. 18 of the previous drivers are now in the Hall of Fame. 37 of those 66 races have been won by Hall of Famers. That's what makes this race what it is. It is won by the biggest, by the best. It basically can build and punctuate careers. It wasn't straight. It was in a backup car from the back, started 40th to first, hasn't been done since 69. He actually was a lap down, that green flag pit stop. We didn't even talk about that. He got trapped a lap down, had to take a wave around. And it was just old school, I'm better than you. Pit a couple laps later, run you down, and pass you in front of a sold-out Charlotte Motor Speedway. Man, it had like the hair on my arm standing up those last 20 laps. It was impressive.
Oh, it was. What a race it was. And you know, I felt like he had quite a run going at him and then kind of stalled. And you talked about it on the broadcast. It's almost like he said, okay, I've got to cool my tires. I've got to kind of get gathered back up. And then a really aggressive move here to clear him. A good one, but that's it was gutsy to slide up there and take advantage of that. A great run for him. I really feel like, you know, them starting at the back with that good a car, it almost disguised their speed. And for Rudy Fugle and the 24, I don't
hit it for
Ross,
me. Hit it for me all night.
And I think it did from everybody. I think if Ross starts in the top 10 and races up there, Rudy adjusts his car to work around that because he sees what he's racing against. For this just to happen and not come into the picture until after the last pit stop, it kind of tied Rudy's hands. He doesn't know how to react to that. And William Byron at the end didn't quite have the pace to really run with the one car.
Todd, I appreciate the time. Thanks for joining me. So much to talk about. Denny Hamlin, the only thing that this isn't even going to make him feel better, but it is a point in the bucket. Denny Hamlin, lap 210 at 29:36 was the Xfinity fastest lap of the race. I loved in the booth because I have it on my little scoring monitor and I watch it pop around. And I was wondering if that would get beat later. Maybe if we had a restart, stacked them up on brand new tires, we would have got a faster lap. But appreciate you joining me, man. A lot to unpack. And I'm looking forward to the next 4 or 5. We got a lot of great ones coming that you and I will be able to break down. Yes. You know, we got the concrete at Nashville, brand new track at Mexico City, Pocono, Michigan, tracks that we both know will be strategic based and a lot of different ways to cover it. When's the next time we're going to hear you on the race coverage? When's the next trip to the radio booth?
Next time will be Michigan. 2 weeks. Yeah, I love going up there to the Irish Hills and
all right,
up there in the OEM's backyard.
I love it. I love it. All right, that's Todd Gordon, Championship Crew Chief, and he's on MRN's Race Calls. He's also on the radio Sirius XM. That was great. Well, post 600 NASCAR Inside the Race is kind of in the books. We appreciate you joining us on a Monday, and for you that are listening or watching, we're going to be consistent on Mondays for the near future. My friends at Prime, I'm so proud to be in the booth with Prime. And I love their commitment to the post race. We did over an hour for the 600. That's long post race is going to continue. Because of that, I've had to shift Inside the Race to Monday because I just have not enough time in the day. I want to talk racing, but I want to give it the right approach. So thanks for joining us on this Memorial Day NASCAR Monday. And if you're listening throughout the week, I appreciate it. Remember, it's available live on YouTube, on demand, wherever you listen to your podcast. Please review, rate, and subscribe. That's how we keep the following. This has been another NASCAR Inside the Race. I'm your host, Steve Letarte, post 600 edition. Thanks for tuning in.